What's up, sir? How you doing?
Yo, what's up, man?
Let me start by saying there's actually a full circle moment for me. The first hip hop concert I ever went to in 1996 was The Roots, the Fugees, and Goody Mob at the Fillmore in San Francisco.
Oh man, that's a classic moment right there. Yeah.
Y'all set the bar so high for me for my first concert. It's been a tough one for MCs ever since.
Wow, and for all three live bands.
3 live bands in that moment was a special one. I mean, I was in high school at the time, but it was such a special moment to see the 3 of you.
Yeah, man, that was a special run. We did a couple runs with the Fugees, and a couple runs with Goody Mob. That one was together. But yeah, that's some of my fondest memories of those. Our earliest tours that we did, which was with Fugees and Beastie Boys, Cypress Hill, Lollapalooza, stuff like that. Like they were some of our first runs. So,
but I always like to start my interviews kind of setting the picture. So imagine a movie about your life. That first that opening sequence that comes into Philly, into your childhood home. What are we seeing? What are we hearing? What are we smelling?
I'm gonna say you're smelling reefer, not weed, but reefer. Probably rolled up into top paper or easy wider rolling papers from some iconic album cover, and from a manila envelope. So that's the aroma that you would smell. You would exit out of through a doorway, out onto the street where there's probably a block party. And, that block party would look like, I don't know, sort of otherworldly in the way that it did for, through the eyes of a 9 or 10-year-old experiencing what a group of people's visceral response to songs like Planet Rock was. You know what I mean? It was something very, I don't know, tribalistic and but alien would probably be as close as one could come to to stepping into the Star Wars cantina. So it was sort of like that for me, and that was around the time that I started to rap, to write rhymes, and to perform. So in that scene, it would the movement, like the story, would be about me just trying to sort of get a chance to get on the mic, probably to no avail. You know what I mean? So I would have to take my performance sort of elsewhere, like behind the scenes or, off onto the side amongst, the other, 10 to 12 and 13-year-olds, as opposed to being able to get on to where the MC, the actual MC who was hyping up the DJ would be. But yeah, that's what my life was like. And that's, that's sort of the cloth that I'm cut from.
It's crazy when you say that story. It reminds me of Rakim's story when he told me of what inspired Microphone Fiend. And it was him trying to get put on as a young kid, and everybody just telling him he couldn't get on the microphone. He was too young.
Yeah.
He was kind of pushed away. And he explained that story. He kicked him through the speaker. He was just mad that, at a young age, he wasn't able to get on the mic.
Yeah, that's my story, as well. Everything except for the foot through the speaker part, because I'd have been donezo.
If we cut open into the Black Thought DNA, what are the inspirations, musical or otherwise, that we would see?
I guess, the DNA, the phrenology, no pun intended, all those different, compartments would be, stuff like images of the Nation of Islam and the Black Panther movement and, other various liberation movements, throughout history and around the world. Freedom fighters, abolitionists here in the States, Music wise, it would be stuff like not only hip hop, but the music from which hip hop sort of came. So the bands and musicians responsible for a lot of those earlier iconic breaks, you know, James Brown and you know, Bootsy Collins and George Clinton and Sly Stone and, you know, Earth, Wind and Fire, and, you know what I mean, like everything that sort of, you know, comes along with that the iconic imagery of those artists, you know, Motown and, you know, that whole shit. But then, you know, I guess more directly, like the more direct influences that you would see would be sort of my, you know, the 5 food groups that sort of, you know, are the recipe to what it is that I do, which would be, you know, Rakim and Big Daddy Kane, Kool G Rap, Chuck D, you know, probably LL Cool J would be there, you know, KRS-One. I guess I'm at more than 5 now, but yeah, you know, KRS and who else was, you know, NWA, you know, Cube, DOC. So yeah, like, but a lot of that stuff is what you would sort of say.
Do you remember what the first song or verse that you wrote as an MC? Or what
I do. Yeah. The first verse I wrote was like a fast sort of syncopated speed rap that was comparable to what the Treacherous 3 was doing back then, you know. So it was that style of like super rapping, the style that JJ Fad sort of made fun of on their song Supersonic. You know, that was the style that I wrote my first rap in. And yeah, I remember it. I was about 9 years old. I wrote that rap and performed it in my first talent show, and, you know, that whole deal. So
while you were honing your craft and making your way to making music a career, what were some of the other jobs that kind of helped pave the way for you to survive?
For me, man, I've sort of been gainfully employed since I was about a second grader. So my first job was just running errands for these fellas that had an optical shop, you know, like where I started wearing glasses around the age of 6 or 7. And yeah, the place that I would get my glasses from, they offered to hire me because I was a latchkey kid. I was one of those kids who, you know, my mom worked a little later into the evening than when I got out of school. So I would, you know, when I was in first grade, second grade, I'd come home just, you know, by myself to an empty house, and I had my door key around my neck, sort of thing, on the shoestring. So I'd be roughhousing and, you know, doing what, you know, young kids do, and I would always, you know, fuck my glasses up. So I would stop at this spot, like, yo, could you guys fix my joints? You know, they took a liking to me and, you know, asked if I could come sort of after school and, you know, just to occupy my time, like run errands for them. So I did, and I, you know, started by getting these guys coffee and sandwiches and helping to clean up the shop. And then that evolved into, you know, just more responsibilities around the shop. I eventually learned how to, you know, to use the machine that carved out lenses, and I got free eyeglasses. So, you know, it was dope for me to be in second grade, you know, going into third grade, and to have, like, you know, Cazelles and, you know, whatever, like the dope, you know, gold frames were that were out, you know what I'm saying? Stuff like this, like when I was a kid, you know what I mean? So it was dope, but I had prescription in all my glasses, so all my joints were mad thick. But yeah, so I did that, and that sort of, you know, I guess instilled within me a solid work ethic and, you know, an appreciation for arriving places on time and that whole deal. And yeah, so and a do for self sort of ethics. So yeah, because my mother didn't have a lot of money, and it was, you know, often just she and I had to make do. I had to figure out how to hustle. So yeah, I would have always kept the job. And these were days when, I guess in Philly, you had to be 14 to work legally, but you know, I had a million jobs by the time I was able to like get working papers and work legally. I felt like a seasoned vet. Like I, you know, had so many different gigs. You know, thanks. I got the arm now.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first check you got for music?
The first check I got for music, yeah, it was probably, the first check that we got for music, I don't even know that it was a check. It was probably like, you know, just cash, thousands of dollars. I think it was like $4 or $5 grand that we made doing this gig in Germany. Like the first time we sort of traveled overseas to go and do a show, we took maybe, you know, 10 people to perform with us. A bunch of MCs, bunch of musicians, and you know, sort of went as a collective to perform at this festival called the Mers Jazz Festival in Germany. And yeah, it was dope. It was an awesome performance. I mean, obviously, we had a lot of overhead because we took so many people. So it's not like, you know, there was. You know, I didn't see like $1,000 of that money, you know what I mean? But it was something that we did really for the experience and to get the buzz going about the band in Europe at that time, which, you know, that's the purpose that it served. And we were able to, you know, to press up some CDs to sell, which, you know, the merch that we were creating to sell at that festival became our first, what people consider our first album, but which was essentially our demo. And, you know, from that legend, we were able to press up some more CDs. And, you know, that's sort of what got us our deal, you know. So it served its purpose. And it was more about the experience than about the check. But I think that check was for about, you know, between $4,000 and $5,000.
I'm assuming it was before then that you were like, oh, I can make hip hop or I can make being an artist a career.
Yeah, definitely. I, you know, really began to focus on just being a musician and music as a career. At some point in high school, maybe around 11th grade, you know, up until then, in my mind, I was going to be a visual artist of some sort, which is what I had always studied in school and you know, outside of school, extracurricular. Like I was always about, you know, just the visual arts. And something clicked when my mom passed away, which was around 11th grade. And yeah, it really just like, it was a motivating sort of factor for me, like fuel to the flame, sort of, you know what, this is something that I'd always wanted to do. And, you know, she sort of, you know, she supported it. So, yeah, now I decided to just, you know, to go full on and invest all my energy into, you know, what would become a career as a musician.
How much has art been and music been therapeutic for you? I mean, you talked about losing your mom at an early age, also your dad, the different things that you were going through at a young age. How much was art and music kind of like that outlet to be able to cope and deal with traumas?
Art and music was my only outlet and was, you know, play, you know, a more than sort of integral role in me being able to deal with that level of trauma. You know, there's already a high level of trauma associated with just coming up where I came up and at the time that I, you know, came up. But for us, it's for those of us who were sort of there, like when you're in it, it's all you know. So it just feels, you know, normal. You don't realize until later on that, wow, this is, you know, everyone isn't dealing with, you know, this sort of thing. Like, I mean, people getting shot outside of their homes and, you know, sort of living in the middle of drug epidemics and, you know, gang wars and that whole, you know what I mean? Like, it's not, you know what I'm saying, what everyone has to deal with. So, yeah, I guess you later recognize that as post-traumatic stress, you know what I'm saying? But, yeah, you know, for me, the art and the music, just any creative outlet has always been super important for me, because it's cathartic in that way. And, you know, over time, it's, you know, what has grown to almost mean more to me is what the art that I'm able to create, like the meaning that it takes on for those who receive it. You know what I'm saying? When I meet folks who tell me that my music changed their lives, or like, hey, you know, like people that I know, I literally talked off of the ledge, you know what I'm saying? Or my music, you know, was what got them through their chemotherapy, or, you know what I mean? As my friend made his or her transition, she wanted to hear this song, or I proposed to, you know what I'm saying, my wife or husband, you know what I mean, at this concert, or, you know, because of this song, or this thing that you said, you know, set me on the right track and changed my life sort of forever. You know what I mean? That's when when I started to meet people whose lives I had changed in that way. That's when my music and what I do gained a whole different dimension of importance. And it's something that, you know, it's way more rewarding for me to create, because I know, you know, just what the possibilities are, you know what I mean, of what it can evolve. You know what I'm saying? I do interviews with people all the time who tell me, you know, stuff like you told me, like, hey, you know, I owe my first concert to you and where you guys set the bar. And, you know, I meet bands like Linkin Park and Good Charlotte. And I mean, the list goes on and on of fellas who went on to become musicians in their own right. But, you know, it's because, you know, they saw the Roots, like their first concert was the Roots. And it's often, you know, people that I would least expect. Paul Wall, you know what I'm saying? Like his first concert was the Roots and Erykah Badu. And that's, you know, he's like, yeah, you know, maybe I'm going to do this music thing.
Take me through your creative process. I mean, not only have you taught a master class at Carnegie Hall, for a lot of people, for a lot of us, you're kind of like the quintessential MC. Can you walk us through just your creative process in terms of how do you approach, you know, making a track?
If you have a set process, if there is a set, you know, standard, a set method, that is the way, like the only way in which your music comes to be, then you're doing yourself a disservice as an artist. You know what I'm saying? The same way that, you know, I guess wolves on the New York City Stock Exchange would say, I mean, always be closing sort of deal. You know, my ABC is always be creating. And there's always music, there's always art, there's always, you know, storytelling, there's always a narrative that's taking place, you know, all around you, you know, whether you're, you know, a part of it or not. I mean, I guess you're always a part of it, but I guess the roles in which you play, like the extent to which you're a part of, you know, all these different narratives varies. You know, but you have to just, you know, be an excellent listener in order to sort of listen to the universe and listen to the songs that write themselves. You know what I'm saying? I always tell people that, you know, if I force it, it's something very different from what I'll get if I allow something to come together in a more organic way. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, all the songs that mean the most to people are songs that, you know, for me, wrote themselves, you know? So, I mean, there is no set process. You just have to listen all the time and never assume that, what I will say is never assume that you're so sharp that you're going to remember whatever the idea was that you had. Because when it comes to you, you know, oftentimes it's a passing thought, you know, or, you know, just like a notion that, you know, has come and gone before you even realize it. So you have to, you know, take out your notebook, jot something down, or, you know, open up that app on your phone and, you know, just make some sort of notation, even if it's not, you know, writing the song or writing down the bars, writing, you know, something that's going to sort of be able to jog your memory back to, you know, where you were when you had that idea. Because, yeah, that's where it all comes from. It comes out of the ether, you know, and for me, a lot of stuff happens when it's least convenient for me to make a note of it, like in the shower, you know what I'm saying? Or, you know, when I'm someplace, as soon as they say, you know, if I could be on a plane and it's like, you know, everybody turn off your electronics, and then I look out the window when it's something that, you know, I'm like, damn, I really need to. So you have to sort of be open to documenting that you know, that narrative and making your notes in different ways. You know what I'm saying? Whichever way is sort of available. You know.
Take me back. I mean, we're in Hispanic Heritage Month. One of my favorite features that you have is with Big Pun, Super Lyrical. Can you take me back to that time and what was that process working together with Pun?
Pun and I started working together. I mean, well, I guess we had a relationship before we did a joint together, and that was because of, you know, I guess we're sort of cut from that same cloth. I feel like, you know, if Pun was still here, and if you would have asked him, hey, you know what I mean, what's your DNA, so to speak, or that whatever that question was that you asked me, a lot of those influences that I named were, you know, were also his. And I feel like it showed. And, you know, like when you know, when you hear something, you sort of know what it's a derivative of. So I feel like we recognized that origin story in one another. So there was a mutual sort of, you know, respect and admiration. And, you know, when he came out, I knew immediately that he was sort of a force to be reckoned with. And whenever he would do press, you know, whenever I would catch a Big Pun interview, they say, hey, who your favorites? He would always drop me as one of his faves. So even before we had met, you know what I mean, I knew that he rocked with me. And, you know what I mean, I think it was obvious to him that I rocked with him based on, you know, just my cadence, you know what I'm saying? And sort of our shared sensibilities. The A&R for his album was Sean C., you know what I'm saying, who was at that time was the A&R at Loud Records, who also, you know what I mean, is someone that I have a long relationship with, and he's always been a huge fan of mine. And, you know, we're also, you know, I mean, we had just a lot in common. Our birthdays are just a few days apart. And, you know, though I'm from Philly and he's from Uptown, again, we share a lot of the same sensibilities. So I feel like he was sort of the deciding factor, you know what I'm saying, that really made Pun say, yeah, all right, I'm going to get Black Thought on this album, because he was, you know, Sean C has always been, even when he was in A&R, he was far much more than an A&R. Like projects that he A&R'd, he essentially, you know, damn near executive produced as well, you know, so he had that kind of input. And yeah, you know, Pun was a huge fan, Sean C was a fan, so they decided to throw me on the joint. And my whole thing in recording the record with Pun, which would become, you know, a classic, that song Super Lyrical, was that, you know, he and I were so similar in, you know, our influences and in, you know, our approach. I didn't want to do, you know, say, for example, like what he did with Fat Joe, like when they did the Twins joints, you know what I mean, when they did that, you know, that whole mixtape, you know, murder spree of them just, you know what I mean, going back to back, you know, seamlessly. You know what I mean? I wanted it to be a seamless exchange, but, you know, just sort of two polar opposites. So it was a conscious effort, you know what I'm saying, for me to not rap anything like I would normally sort of rap, and, you know, to not really approach it in the same way. I mean, it almost pained me not to be, you know, super da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But that's the way Pun came on it. So, you know, I deliberately tried to, you know, do something different with it. And I rose to that challenge. And I feel like, yeah, we got something, a timeless classic out of it. You know what I'm saying?
Do you remember what that time in the studio was with him? What were the vibes like?
I mean, you know, the Pun, we recorded the song separately. When I was in the studio doing my joint, I was in there with Sean C. We were at Battery Studios, you know, in a room that was across the hall from the room where Bob Power usually works. So I recorded a lot of stuff already in that building. And that was Zamba was in that building. And, you know, that's, you know, where I met Q-Tip and Erykah Badu. And just a second. Yeah. Okay. All right. I have to go and record something for the show. Can I hit you back in like 10 minutes?
Of course.
All right, I will in 10 minutes.
Okay, no doubt.